The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the King of Podcasts.
First of all, my apologies for not being here last week. It's very rare for me to go ahead and miss the Broadcasters Podcast and not do a week, at least not even do 15 minutes worth, without it being something that just really made it impossible to go and do. So FAU, my alma mater, Florida Atlantic University, in the Final Four, I went to go see them in New York last week. And booking the tickets, getting everything all ready, preparing, planning, having to get up early Thursday morning for a 6 a.m. flight from Palm Beach to Newark, it made it impossible for me to do any of my programs, especially that program. And the problem is also, it wasn't like I had time ahead to think about it. It wasn't until, Sunday, I think it was? And then we said, okay, yeah, we're going to leave Thursday. So we had 4 days to plan. That's what caused me to miss doing this show. So for that, I apologize. I don't like doing that, but that is how things happened this time around. So I can only say I apologize for letting that happen. And I can only ask for, I hope all of you will understand that I did not mean it in jest and that I'm back now. And we're going to keep doing the show as it should be. So I'm here and I'm happy to be back doing the show because you know what? This week, more than anything, a lot of things happen. And it just pisses me off on how radio wants to go and treat their talent. Listen, there's not that much great talent that's, been around for a long time that's been left alone to do their own thing. But for whatever reason, here we are. And radio decides once again to go ahead and bash and destroy talent. Two long-time, decades-long radio talents fired without warning. Not even given a chance to say goodbye to their listeners. Having to go outside the newspapers to find out a way to go ahead and let the audience know what happened to some of their favorite people. In the meantime, we're getting AI technology, which we've talked about a lot on this program, that continues to be the plan. Listen, we already knew automation was coming, but we were going to get to the point where now we got radio that's going to be completely automated. As if people are not going to be able to distinguish what's a human voice and what's not. Because, remember, it's been going downhill anyway because radio has not been allowed to be itself. You don't get the people that are going to be entertaining. They don't have time to entertain. They don't have time to go ahead and be themselves and show some character. Because that's not what the corporate radio people want. They want puppets. They want stooges to come on. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's some good people that are in radio now that are new that could absolutely do the job. And if given the chance, they could be really something special. And maybe they came into this business hoping to still be able to do that. But as far as I'm concerned, while they are not rebelling against the system, while they are just doing what they're going to do, doing what they're told, being paid less and less in some cases, getting cut after cut after cut, and still trying to move along and make something of their business, they're not. Because radio doesn't care. Corporate radio does not care at all. And I remember being in 2002 to 2005, being in the rank, or 2006, being in the ranks of Clear Channel or iHeart Radio, and knowing the morale, any morale at all. And listen, I have a friend of mine who's a journeyman in radio that's done a lot of talk for a long time, a lot of talk radio. And I can't tell you many times how many people I've known in radio that just feel disheartened and are disappointed and just feel like, what happened to the love? What happened to the enjoyment of being in front of a microphone and doing this? Even though I'm doing the same thing, I'm running with a broadcast quality mic right now in the studio in my home, which is nice, it's convenient, but still, it's not like the radio studio. It's not like what I used to do before. Having the board, having the controls, having all that music, the resources at my disposal, having other people at my side, camaraderie, having fun, the camaraderie of the studios, having that atmosphere of fun and party and just having a great time. What happened to that? We know corporations will continue to take away that kind of creativity, take away that kind of atmosphere. As we know, that just continues to go along since 1996. I've talked about it. But it's not going to sting any less as long as it keeps happening. As long as they have to continue to see stories that continue to talk about the deterioration of radio, of the foundation that this business was built upon. And for those that are around, in some cases like our first feature story, 50 years on the air, and how you give this guy the most insensitive send-off with no chance to listen. I don't expect Jack Harris to get the Scott Sheehan send-off. Okay, I get that, but you don't send this guy out like that. I feel like Fredo Corleone defending Mo Green. You don't talk to a man like Jack Harris like that, and that's what happened here. People didn't care, and you know what we said, and I'll say this as well. Gabe Hobbs, the Tampa Mafia, okay. MJ Kelly, Dave Denver, right? Mason Dixon, Randy Matthews, right? The folks that were first part of J-Core Communications out of Cincinnati, and then ran the role here back in the day, right? Randy Michaels. I'm sorry, that was who it was. Randy Michaels. Forgot that. And they came to Tampa as part of Clear Channel, taking them to space. Eventually, J-Corp owned, 98 Rock, the Power Pig, 93.3 FLZ, among other stations they had. And just let everything kind of just fall apart. And then to have the likes of Clear Channel Communications buying them. And while there was still some control within the Tampa Mafia to go ahead and do what they do, and be able to go ahead and, take up so many stations and run great programming on those stations, because those people there, they were rebellious. They were the revolution. They were the radio's counterculture. They were bringing us into the 90s and 2000s of how music radio was supposed to be. When music was still quality, by the way, okay, I can go ahead and thump on that as well for another hour or two about the fact that we're getting disposable music. Now, I don't talk enough about this, but the music we have on the radio now, and then to streaming in some cases, because it's on streaming, because it doesn't make that much money, because it doesn't have that much staying power, it's disposable. Much of the TikTok music we hear, that gets up on TikTok, is disposable. So you get songs that come in and out, and you know what? We're getting fast food music. We're not getting gourmet. Let's just be honest with us here. And by the way, when I see the artist coalitions now that want to get together for artist creativity, I'm going to tell you how you fix that. I said this to a friend of mine earlier, and maybe I'll take that conversation. I'm going to ask him for permission. I had a great hour-long debate producing a radio show for one of the networks I run. I'm going to ask him, hey, can I go and run back that conversation? Because I'm going to go and pull it back up and see if I play it. Because I thought one of the things I brought it up to him about radio was, well, with music, if music went back to instrumentation and not so much digital, and you had human talent that could sing really well, perform, and be versatile, can play various instruments, and not just 3 chords of a guitar, and allowed to do that, and have session musicians again. AI can't compete with that. Machine learning can't compete with it. Robots can't do it. Okay? They can't get the percussion. They can't get the repetition. They can't get that. The rhythm, the soul, the funk. They can't get it. So there's still room for radio to get it done right. They can be the arbiters of new music discovery. And music could be played with quality. which is what those stations back in the day, they used to have that. And they were not allowed to go and stay around, you know? It's like, it's pitiful. So they owned WFLZ, WFLA, WXTU, which was 898 Rock, among other stations they had. And they had all of that. So this is where it was, 1998 or 1999, right? 7 stations hold. And J-Core also had WTBT, Thunder, 105.5 back in the day. And that was when everything all changed. When stations started to be different, and then Clear Channel would take over, and things would just be, you know, it was all going to happen. And Tampa Bay would not be the same. It would be the continual decline, deterioration of radio into the millennium. Because that's what's happened since. And no one can stop it. So unfortunate. But here we are, we're looking at what things are right now. And it's a shame. So Jack Harris, a longtime radio personality, was fired. He has been a longtime host of News Radio 970 WFLA. And been consistently for the last 29 years and off and on since 1970. He says, and this story came up yesterday. This is on March the 30th. This will be March 29th, Tuesday. Quote, after I signed off for my show at 7 a.m. today, iHeart radio bosses told me they were cutting back on expenses and had to let me go. Now, Jack Harris is 81 years old. So, I mean, listen. He was going to have to retire pretty soon. Couldn't keep doing, you know, radio over there as he did. He had been on and off of the station, like I said. Quote, I didn't think I was that big of a burden on them. I was only making 1/7 of what I made 3 or 4 years ago. He was shocked by the decision, wished they'd given him one more show to say goodbye to his... All he wanted to say goodbye to his fans. It didn't even matter so much if they were going to let him go. He didn't get to say anything. Quote, just tell them that they've been great to me over the years. They are what I will miss most. And you know what? Jack Harris, I got to hear what he sounded like on music radio. And Jack Harris, by the way, for the record, hell of a radio jock. Funny, relatable, enjoyable. Nice guy. Nice guy. Born in Loganville, West Virginia. Started in Loganville, West Virginia, working on radio station WVOW. And he got to work at college radio, WAGR, Morgantown, West Virginia. He also served in the U.S. Army. Nominated as a finalist for the Radio Hall of Fame. He also, after working, 5 years or so in WFLA, working music radio, he also worked at WRC in Washington, D.C., working alongside Willard Scott of the Today Show fame, right? That was the mid-70s. And then NBC would switch that show to All News, and he moved to the FM station. Became the first disc jockey on the disco station of then sister station WKYS for a year, which was the same station Donnie Simpson came from, of Video Soul fame. And then he came back in 1975 back to Tampa. And he continued there. Did the first talk station in Tampa following overnight exclusive coverage of Hurricane Helene in 1986. Then he worked on WRBQ. And then he would go and join WFLZ, Power 93, the Power Pick in the late 80s, early 90s, in the heyday of what was great radio. A station, much like Z100 in the 80s, in 1983, going from last to first. Power Pick did it as well. And he worked with Ted Webb on AM Tampa Bay on WFLA since 1993 until Ted Webb passed away. Worked for the Buccaneers on broadcast, pregame show. Did voiceover announcements for Tampa International Airport. play-by-play for the Buccaneers, South Florida Bulls, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Tampa Bay Bandits, Tampa Bay Storm. I mean, he just has done so much. 50-year career, a Hall of Fame broadcaster, and your business throws you out like that. And Jack Harris, Tampa Bay Times, where I take the story from, they actually talked about it, right? They were live when the planes hit World Trade Center on 9/11. Continued to broadcast until noon that day. The other drawing, which the last pooled entry was declared the loser and awarded a trip to Buffalo, New York. Oh, that's horrible. He was actually renowned for his satire of Canadian broadcasters Gordon Sinclair's The Americans and Canadians' Opinion, celebration of U.S. willingness to help other nations while facing crises alone. He would create a version called the Floridians, a Yankees opinion. That's pretty funny. He has spun records, covered sports, hosted zany radio shows, morning shows. 48 of those 53 years in Tampa have been with 970 WFLA. He was a TV host, did commercial work, master ceremonies at events, and he says he might look for part-time work on the radio somewhere, or maybe I'll retire. I'm an old geezer after all. This guy just had it, man. Just easy going. He loved radio, even though radio was treating him bad. Pitiful. Irresponsible, insensitive people. This is Clear Channel, folks. This is Clear Channel. Who is the person now? We're gonna make him famous right here. Here we go. Who is the Tampa Clear iHeart Media regional manager? I need to find out who that is. Who is this guy that allowed this shit to happen? His name is Chris Sechtig. That's who this is. Man, I'll tell you what, even there 22 years, by the way. He was market president in West Palm Beach. So for West Central Florida, this guy, under his watch. Yep. Absolutely irresponsible. You couldn't just let the guy go. Listen, I understand you want to have cut costs and you can't have any more people that are where they are. Sure. It does not mean that you just go ahead and just let things go by the wayside and you just don't at least show a little bit of respect. A little bit. They couldn't do that. I mean, it's just pitiful. Oh, yes. Also, let's a shout out to Tommy Chuck, Senior Vice President of Programming for iHeart Media Tampa Bay. Yeah, this guy too. What do they see? What were these people thinking of? You know, the respect they have. And so I'm saddened. I like the guy. He was good. Worked with a lot of people. Worked with everybody. Worked well from what I learned. Axel Lowe is another guy that just got let go in Atlanta on the infamous, not the 99X from WXLO up in New York, okay? The one that replaced WOR. No, 99X in Atlanta. One of the true trend-setting alternative stations in that market. He, after the station late last year decided to go back to an alternative format, he leaves the station without warning. So Axel Lowe was at 99X when it began in 1992 and is leaving the station after just 4 months after management revived the station's alternative rock format. Final day is March 31st. That's it. One day. Afternoon jock at 99X for much of his original run, ending in 2008. He remained a valuable member over at replacement station Rock 100.5 for the last 14 years. Stayed employed at Atlanta-based Cumulus Media. Became program director and did the mornings. And a personality-based afternoon show. When Brian Phillips, who was chief content officer for Cumulus, he helped build 99X in the 1990s, changed the station's format in December, and Lowe stuck around. So we're trying to bring things back. Lowe, age 54, one of the longest continuously employed music jocks in Atlanta, was the station's program director. Now, the station now is currently playing music for the heyday in the 90s and 2000s, Foo Fighters, Collective Soul, White Stripes, you get the idea. Brought back the original Morning X team of Steve Barnes and Leslie Fram, recycling classic bits from the old show. And back in January, he said he was psyched to rebuild a brand that meant so much to so many people. And that's it. And the rival station, 97.1 The River, lost their morning host back in December. And Steve Craig was actually the original 99X midday host that preceded Alex Lowe. Another 30 years plus in the business. He's tossed out. What is this for? What good is this for? Why are we going to this point? Why are all these people being let go like this in such fashion? I mean, there's one thing about layoffs, but then we're hearing the stories about this. It doesn't make sense to me. It bothers me a lot. But this is what's happening. And people just don't care. We're just going to go along as if this is just normal, commonplace. That we're just supposed to accept this. Well, okay, if those people can't talk because they need to keep finding jobs, well, you know what? I'm not in the radio business. I'm not. I'm not under the guise of iHeart Media, Cumulus, Odyssey, all these other corporate companies. But damn it, I've been here doing this show for over 5 years. And all I've asked for, just a little bit of help. I don't need a dime. I don't get a dime from paying this at all. Okay, maybe a little bit of revenue, but that's not anything. That's okay. But I created this show over 5 years ago. And by the way, 270 shows ago, okay, to continue to thump, and most of the episodes I've done, quite a few of them have had to include radio stories in it. Because the original reason I brought this show together was to talk about radio. Because I love the format. I love the medium. It's what I grew up on. It's what I loved. It's what I wanted to be in since I was a kid. I've said it. I've wanted to be one of those people that got to do what those two did on a regular basis. The kind of fun they both had. The audience, the adulation, the love, the embrace. Knowing you had that comfortable voice with you in the morning and the afternoons, no matter what kind of day you were having. And they complimented the music, the great music they would play. And for whatever reason, we can't do that now. You took that away from us. These radio stations, these radio networks, these companies, they continue to pick away at the radio I love. To where I'm not kidding, I go ahead and I continue to build Spotify playlists, creating, in my mind, I'm playing program director and the music director for the music I wish I could hear. That wasn't so segmented and compartmentalized like it has been in the 2000s. Where you have to have hip-hop play hip-hop. Because I remember when hip-hop stations would still play some crossover artists and not be where they had to stay in a certain lane. I remember when pop music would go and play a little more outside of the cuff, and they were not so homogenized and not so, sanctimonious. I remember when radio would actually play other songs because top 40 was the format, not contemporary hit radio. Top 40. Because what I am in the business right now of, what I do as a hobby of mine with the Spotify playlist that I listen to all the time, and I hope other people will listen to as well, I consistently put playlists together, 4 of them right now, to represent the radio stations I wish I could hear now. Because we don't have them. We might have some that might be a little taste, a little bit of compartmentalized, maybe a a tenth, a quarter of the type of programming I wish I had. Hey man, maybe it's just me. Like, I'm the person that still talks like I'm a disc jockey between records, because I can do that in the car. I don't give a shit people are watching. I do it all the time. I'll talk up the record to the post, right? I'm one of those people. Hand up. And I'm watching just the continuous, downfall of radio. And I keep offering ideas. Well, if you're going to be corporate, if you're going to just, nationalize the format, then do what BBC Radio does. Do what all these big stations, other countries do. Like, do that. Don't take away the quality of the radio. Don't take away the quality of the talent. And the talent that you give this nepotistic, or because they're just safe. We don't want that. Do you think everybody in the world wants everybody to be like Bobby Bones and Elvis Duran and Ryan Seacrest? No. Every market wants something different, and everybody wants to get rid of radio shows and talent. Partly because, they're all required to use the same show prep. They're all required to say the same things over and over with a little bit of localization. But there's no real live and local quotient. There is no interaction with the audience through phone lines. And by the way, all those stations, they still have phones. Right? They still have the phone lines. They still have the telexes. They still got them in there. So if you want to, they can still patch in and conference whoever they want. But they don't use them. They're just collecting dust. And for what? Because we have to voice track. Is anybody monitoring the voice tracking? Like, if I have the voice track and I'm there live in the studio, you're telling me that, I got to make sure that, I don't want to flub? Oh my God, that's what live radio is. Sometimes, like Johnny Carson, you take a flub, you make something out of it. You make it funny. You humble yourself. You show that you're real, not like these robots they want to replace us with. All this AI technology. Listen, I understand for trying to make radio more convenient and a little bit easier to work with, because sure, you don't meet as many people as you did back in the day to produce or engineer or host or anything like that. Like, you don't need the big group of the morning show. And if you do, most of those people are relevant. Let's just put it like that. We don't need 5, 6, 7 people in a morning show. For what? That's too many people talking. You're not going to be Howard Stern. You're not going to be Tom Barnard. You're not going to be Bob and Tom. Okay? You're not going to be Elvis Duran. You're not going to be Bobby Bones. Okay? You're not going to be any of those. But all these people, they just prefer, no, we're just going to do something else. We just don't care. You're underserving your public. You're also playing the same music over and over because you won't increase your playlist because you think your audience metric testing, your research, which you're using the same research or whatever. Are you even doing anything new to like really placate your audience? No, not at all. Oh, but we need our talent to do more. We got to record podcasts, and we also have to make sure that we're doing things that are extra segments and all that are part of the timeline of the streaming of our show or our programming on smart speakers. What? Radio doesn't care to understand. They don't care to be new music discovery because, I guess they just want to fail. Let me tell you something, man. I keep bringing up the stories about the policymakers talking about the bipartisan bills to bring back royalty, right? I've talked about it. And I'm telling you, man, Curtis Legate and the National Association of Broadcasters, tell you what, man, you don't want to pass the royalty bill for honor and music use. You don't want Congress to do it. Sure, that's you. Because you know what's going to happen, Curtis? You're going to lose your spot. The NAB as a lobbying arm will be irrelevant. It will be weakened. It will be destroyed. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. Just wait. Music industry versus the radio industry. And the radio, the American Music Fairness or AM/FM Act. Remember, we already had music monetization. They tried to not put the bills together. They split them up, and now they're trying to build the bill. It's going to pass the second bill. Let me remind you back from February. Supporters of a radio royalty, this is from InsiderRadio.com. They reintroduced the American Fairness Act, Music Fairness Act, and if passed, would require broadcast stations to pay royalties when they spin records. Smallest with those with less than $100,000 in revenue, $10 per year in on-air radio royalties. Between $100,000 and $500,000, or $100,000 and $1.5 million in revenue, $100 per year, and $500 if it's a commercial station. How much other stations will be paying would be left up to the Copyright Royalty Board, with the bill requiring it to develop 5-year licensing agreements between the music industry and radio. So you know what happens? This is the point. So all those stations that are above $1.5 million in revenue, you know what those all are? That's iHeartRadio, that's Odyssey, that's Cumulus. They will have to enter into 5-year licensing agreements. How much would that be? The music industry and what they give radio, the promotion is $2.4 billion a year. Broadcasters say that listeners will lose out since stations will be forced to redirect money used for entertainment programming, news, and local information to cover the expense. Yeah. They can't keep doing that anymore, okay? What's going to happen, I believe, and what needs to happen, honestly, for the good of radio, is that this bill needs to pass. Congress needs to pass this. I'm with the music industry here. I'm on their side. Pay their royalties. When you corporate types, when you decided to let payola not be a real thing, and listen, I was the one that thought payola was a bad thing. I was wrong. Much like the mafia. Hey man, it might not be, it might not have been great either, but you know what? At least the mafia would do things where they didn't want to go ahead and, screw the pooch. They would not do things to destroy their pipeline of cash and money and power. Meanwhile, radio doesn't care. Owned by all these private equity groups, they could care less. Okay, they don't want to care about who runs what they're doing. Okay? And just to give you a heads up, in the current state of iHeartMedia, and the fact that they're allowed to continue to operate as such, you know that according to their latest financial report, they still have a total debt of $5.48 billion. $5.41 billion in long-term debt, $64.83 million in current debt. But yet, they're allowed to continue to move along. Why? When this radio royalty bill, if it does come to pass, let me tell you what. If it does, and I hope it does someday, that they're not going to be able to go and keep the radio stations the way they are. They're going to just have to let them go. That will be a great thing if they do that. I hope they do. It needs to happen. It's time. So the proposal has been put out there. I don't know if they've done anything else since. I'm waiting. Now, I didn't talk about this before, but there was a National Association of Broadcasters leadership conference where the broadcasters went to Washington, D.C. to talk to Congress. And right now they introduced a Senate version of the Local Radio Freedom Act and a House version that would be opposing to change the federal copyright law to create a performance royalty on over-the-air musical use. All right. So we know that, NAB's going in there. They wanted to do what they're going to do. Of course, he says that A new job-crushing performance fee on local radio stations would hurt stations' ability to provide their free essential service in communities across the country. Remember, they're not asking for that much. They're asking for a flat fee to the smaller stations that make less than $1.5 million a year. The ones that would be hurt are the corporates entering 5-year licensing agreements. They would never survive. If they had to pay for all those stations on licensing agreements, it would never work. It's already bad enough that iHeartMedia can't make enough money at all. But yet some people still think the valuation is worth taking the risk on their on investing in them. Bullshit. Just saying. So what are they doing right now to continue to okay, so we're going to keep cutting out talent. Is that the plan? But then what happens after that? Well, now we have companies that want to go and do something to help with the AI part. So like, yeah, let's replace the talent, human with robotics. It's not cheaper. I mean, you're just using technology to replace human talent. What good is that? So there's a company called QUU. It's enabling radio stations to display messages and images on vehicle dashboards. They now have a new product that embeds visual advertising directly into programming into an unobtrusive way. Branded as content partnership, the ad unit displays a commercial message for 30 seconds while a song or other programming is playing. Yeah, just like YouTube. So when a song starts on the Q-enabled station, the vehicle dashboard shows a song title, artist, and cover art for the first 90 seconds. Then the visual changes to an ad for what Q calls one of the station's content partners. And for 30 seconds, motorists will see the name of the advertisement and a brief message before the display reverts back to the song, title, and artist for the rest of the song. The station name remains present 100% of the time. This would be a new revenue opportunity, providing a big reach in the form of an exclusive ad unit. Stations would have just two content partners running at a time, generally on a category exclusive basis. Odyssey, Beasley Media Group, Radio FM Fargo, and others sold content partnership to local advertisers during the pilot phase. And a top 10 market station sold to Audio Dealership, a year-long partnership, for $300,000, while a top 200 market station sold it across multiple stations for $90,000. Yeah. The product being made available to clients at no additional cost above their monthly Q subscription. The company already has a client base of 1,300 stations. This is not just a song title artist tool anymore. Which is what it kind of was when I got here. It's a revenue-producing asset for the radio station. All right. So you'll now have more places to put ads. Okay. And you'll get some extra advertising. All right. That's one way to make some extra money. It's not going to cover what you got to get. Nope. No. What about the next thing they're doing right now? How about this? Radio Insight reports on AI radio. It's another fantastic idea they have here. Let's bring this up then, huh? Super Hi-Fi and 11 Labs have partnered to launch AI radio, showing how powerful and entertaining these AI-driven music experiences can be. They now have Super Hi-Fi's Magic Stitch AI-powered tools that combine music tracks, audio liners, ad spots, sonic logos, audio branding into a playlist. And Prime Voice AI from 11 Labs will create incredibly realistic voices that can be used as DJs, read personalized news, provide localized weather bulletins, or for advertising, all through the same interface that they currently use to manage their radio experiences. Yeah, this is what I want. This is how I want radio to be. Now, there's a product demo for this too, if you want to hear what it sounds like. So I don't know if I'm going to like it or not, and if it's going to be any good, but I mean, it's in there and people can try to listen to it, but you know, you're not going to get anything. I mean, I haven't listened to what the jocks sound like on there, but I mean, I've heard stations that are on that like can show like, you know, it doesn't matter how good the imaging is, but when it's just a jukebox, that's all it is. And of course, they're saying that the combination of these AI platforms, opens up endless possibilities to create new content and streaming audio. But see, the problem is they're going to do this for terrestrial radio. That's what they want to try to do. Okay. If this is what you prefer, I mean, listen, it's fine, but like, if you're going to just take the human component out, you lost me. And that's all they continue to do. As long as they keep doing this. One more thing in radio that is also just going to bother me anyway altogether. How about iHeart Media also decided to go ahead and make a decision to stop matching employee retirement savings. What? That happened. And I'm not going to go into the other stories I have. Not tonight. I'm fed up. Like, I got other stories I could bring up. The AI revolution, the entertainment industry can't pull a Napster. The government threatening the TikTok showdown. That's a lot of op-ed pieces, but I can hold that off for later, and that's what I'm going to do. But this story I want to just take as the epitome of this radio episode, as always. So, iHeartMedia reports it's going to temporarily stop matching employee contributions to their 401k as it reduces expenses amid a downturn in advertising. The decision to suspend matching retirement contributions was announced in a memo written by iHeartMedia CEO Bob Pittman and CFO Rich Bressler, a copy which was obtained and confirmed by the desk.com or the desk.net on Monday. And they said that macroeconomic factors were forcing iHeartMedia to make tough choices on cost and priorities. And tougher choices include a severe reduction in non-essential spending and travel, a suspension of matching contributions to employee retirement accounts, a temporary hiring freeze on non-essential roles across the company. Can I mention this as well, please? You know, remember when we had the restructuring of the bankruptcy back in 2018? Do you remember that? Can I just make this point too? I just want to make sure that I know how much they're getting paid, right? This goes back to March 7th, 2023, right? They got to expand their company holdings. Let's bring that up. So, according to the SEC filings, Pittman and Bressler each brought almost 95,000 shares of company stock for $525,000 apiece. And total holdings in iHeart for Pittman, it's 1.9 million shares of Class A common stock, 1.6 million for Bressler. So they were able to go and buy all this extra stock. And by the way, their compensation, Bob Pittman, in his role as chairman and chief executive officer of iHeartMedia, makes almost $9 million a year. $9 million a year. That's not counting supposed extra money that he makes as well. $8 million. And $7 million for Richard Bressler. And then the EVP of Finance and Deputy Chief Financial Officer, he makes $2 million. Jordan Fassbender, General Counsel and Secretary, makes $1 million. That's fine. Listen, that's okay. But I don't see Bob Pittman or Richard Bressler taking any pay cut along with the rest of their team as a point of like, everybody's hurting, including ourselves. No, we can't do that. And they make mention of that these measures are part of a proactive plan to keep our company healthy in the economic slowdown to be fully ready for economic recovery. And by the way, the annual, quarterly, and earnings report showed the company's loss widened to $262.7 million, up from $158.4 million the previous year. So they're just continuing to, they had, $20 million in debt? And what did I say before? 5.4 million? 4 billion, excuse me? We're back to the same way as it was. Okay, they're not cutting their debt. They're getting more debt. And at this point, they're never going to, make themselves solvent. Of course they're going to operate with debt, but they're not doing anything to even care. The point is, we're still going to probably get a continuation, right? A continuation of debt. So when they were bankrupt, they don't even care anymore. They're just going to go on and do what they're going to do. Sure. Pitiful. Pitiful. Because they don't care. They don't care at all. They're going to do what they're going to do. Now, they make the point in here and say that iHeart Media struggled with a significant pullback in marketing dollars flowing to traditional broadcast outlets. According to data released by Media Monitors and reviewed by The Desk, their own promotional spots were often the most top 3 played commercials played across monitor radio stations in the United States, beating out spots from Progressive, Procter & Gamble, Babbel, Lowe's, and the Home Depot. So you want to keep the ad inventory in place, thinking it's going to come back, and all people are listening to more are your own ads. Like, if you actually had paid ads there, I'd almost say, okay. Like, even if you just, like, change the advertising when you have more advertising, that sounds good too, but no, we're not getting that either. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the fact that we're in a recession and inflation. Yeah, I mean, we can still, they can think of reasons as to why that's all happening. And also to deal with the fact that the stock price is dropping a lot. So, while the stock price is low, Ressler, Pittman, Chief Accounting Officer Scott Hamilton, all grabbing shares. Buying while it's super low. Only benefiting themselves. That's all they care about. Some real bullshit right there. They don't care. That's what they're going to do. It's pitiful. It's pitiful, but that's what they're going to do. What are you going to do, right? All right, we're going to leave it there. That's it for the show tonight. There's a lot more I can bring up, but I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for catching the Broadcasters Podcast this week. And, forgive me for missing for last week. And until next week, remember that content is king. And the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.